Welcome to h360 HealthTalk, and we're here today with Dan Dillard, the Executive Director and CEO of the Burn Prevention Network. The Burn Prevention Network is a regional 501c3 not-for-profit organization currently serving 22 counties throughout eastern Pennsylvania and Warren County, New Jersey. Their mission is to provide burn prevention and fire safety, education, and advocacy to those at the greatest risk of burn injury. They serve an average of nearly 500,000 people throughout the region each year, about 90% of whom are children. There are approximately 400,000 fires and burn injuries reported in the United States each year. Young children and persons with mobility impairments are the most frequent victims. Fires and burns remain the third leading cause of unintentional injury-related death among U.S. children ages 14 and under. Dan graduated from Millersville University of Pennsylvania and has been leading the Burn Prevention Network for over 32 years. Dan, welcome to the table.
Thank you very much, Dave. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, Dan, I know some of the good work that you're doing, and we've had some meetings both at the Burn Prevention Network in Lehigh Valley, where you're located. But why don't you start by telling our guests a little bit about yourself?
A little bit about myself.
A little bit about yourself.
Well, we'll start with the unusual.
Okay.
I have 7 children and 15 grandchildren, and my wife and I have been married for 46 years.
Wow.
So I have staying power, which is why I've been with the Burn Prevention Network for about 33 years. The other reason I've been with the Burn Prevention Network that long is it continues to challenge, it continues to fulfill, and it continues to produce wonderful outcomes. Outcomes that can be documented and that change lives for the positive. I entered into this career from another social service career. I've been in nonprofit most of my working years. When a member of the board of both the organization I currently was employed by and this new organization that was forming as a spin-off of a foundation in Philadelphia was looking for its first executive director and to form a brand new board, create a mission, incorporate and establish a strategic plan going forward. This gentleman thought that I had the qualifications to do those things for him. I thought he was crazy. I was very happy in the career that I was in at that point in time. But after 3 months of relentless pursuit, I agreed to come on an interview. And part of that interview was touring the Regional Burn Center at Lehigh Valley Health Network. At that point, a relatively small burn center. That tour changed my life and changed my career direction. I saw firsthand the suffering that people endure who are touched by this very traumatic injury. I saw the dedication and the suffering that the caregivers went through on a daily basis, the nurses who attended these people, who had to debride these burns in, at that point, hydrotherapy pools by literally scrubbing the dead skin off of them. Narcotics helped, but didn't begin to eliminate the pain these people endured. And then I learned that over 75% of those burns could easily have been prevented if the right intervention was applied. That was an opportunity of a lifetime that I just couldn't pass up, to create an organization that could literally prevent one of the worst pains and traumas that the human body sustains and can survive. And I haven't regretted a day since then.
So, Dan, one of the things that struck me as I was opening up the show is just the sheer numbers, right? I said that that you serve on the average of over 500,000 people throughout the region each year. 90% are children. First of all, that 500,000 number, that's a big number. And to think that 90% are children is, it blows me away. When we look at that 500,000, we just peel back the onion, what is that 500,000? Are those people that are they fire-related burns? Are they, I'm thinking it can't be just house fires. There's automotive fires, car accidents, car catches on fire. What kinds of burn victims do you see coming through the Burn Prevention Network and the 500,000 you're serving?
Okay, great questions. In fact, it's a several answer question.
I try to sneak more than one in at a time, as you'll notice.
Let's begin with the number 500,000 and go back to our mission. Our mission is to prevent burn injury from happening.
Yeah.
So by and large, the people we work with, the sheer numbers of people we work with, are not burn survivors. They're people who have not been burned, and our task is to sustain that, to make sure they don't get burned.
Okay.
So the 500,000 people that we reach,
right,
90% of whom tend to be children, goes back to, again, our mission statement. We seek to serve those at highest risk to burn injury. Children are burned, depending on their age group, anywhere from 2 to 4 times the frequency of other ages within the age spectrum.
Mother said that stove was hot, and by gosh, it was hot.
And there's reasons for that, and we'll get into that later on in this discussion. But recognizing the fact that both the children are experience the highest incidence of burn injury. Because they're smaller, they have thinner skin, those burns tend to go deeper and cover more area. And they're forming behaviors and life patterns while they're children. They're the prime objective for injecting behavioral modification, changing the way they think, changing the way they behave, that creates a more safe environment for them, a less burn-prone environment for them. So that 500,000 people we annually touch each year with our programs are largely students in classrooms. And we partner with over between 1,400 and 1,500 schools.
So it's about the education.
It's about education to learn how to identify hazards, how to change unsafe behaviors, and how to eliminate those risks that potentially are going to cause a burn injury so that it becomes a non-event. Our poster child is a person like you or me who is not scarred, does not have, that has not lost the ability to sweat or perspire because those cells have been destroyed, and is able to live a normal life without having to make major compensations in their lifestyle. So our programs are reaching into schools. They're teacher delivered. We designed them that way. We have close to 24,000 classrooms using our programs right now. We provide all the materials, we provide the teacher's guides, we provide the student workbooks, we fund all of this, and we reach over 85% of all the children grades 1 through 8 in Eastern Pennsylvania at this point in time.
So when you started 30-some years ago, this number of 400,000 fires and burn injuries reported in the U.S., your goal was to reduce that by 70% in your region. How are you doing against that goal?
Great question. When I took this job, there were 2.2 million medically treated burn injuries per year in the United States.
2.2 million.
Last year, there were 486,000 medically attended burn injuries in the United States. That's a dramatic decrease.
Yeah.
Especially when you factor in the average cost of care just for the hospital care of a serious burn injury, which runs in the neighborhood of about $60,000 per injury, and for extreme injuries can go as high as $2 million. So the cost savings alone far outstrips the cost of our operations in delivering these prevention programs to people that are at high risk. Not to mention the human suffering, the loss of opportunity, the loss of employment, all the things that go along with the dysfunction that serious scarring and burns can cause.
So I want to go back to you had mentioned two things, education and behavioral change, right? You said your poster boy for the Burn Prevention Network is somebody like you and I, and that you want to get everybody there through education and behavioral change. What is, in your opinion, what is the number one behavior you want to change? Is it smoking in bed? Is it leaving the stove on? Is it what's that? If you could, and maybe there's not one maybe there's several, but what would you kind of categorize as those behaviors that are on the top of the list for change?
Again, they vary by age group and by socioeconomic status, but the number one behavior that we're trying to overcome is the belief that burns happen to other people, not to me.
Really?
How many people get up in the morning and say, I need to be careful I don't get burned today?
I don't think I've ever said that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, and that's the case. Yet, burns are the third leading cause of traumatic injury to children under the age of 14. Again, close to 500,000 people are burned each year. Most people in their lifetime will receive a medically attended burn injury of some sort. Most cases, it's relatively minor and will heal on its own. But it's that attitude of not thinking to behave in a burn-safe way that we have to overcome. So not only do we have to teach specific practices, we have to create an awareness in the people that are at risk that this injury is real, it could happen to them, and it could change their life. Until that reality creeps into their way of thinking, they're not ready to change the way they approach things like campfires, gas grill cooking, microwaving, the way they enjoy activities that can create burn injury in the out of doors, again, campfires, and even walking on sand on the beach. You wouldn't believe how many people end up in the hospital with second-degree burns on their feet from hot sand.
Well, you hit a good point, and I think when most people hear, the burn prevention or burn, they think raging fires, flames. Mm-hmm. They don't think about the person sitting on the beach that falls asleep and hadn't applied sunscreen, and they're out in the middle of the day for hours at a time, cooking, basically, mm-hmm. or an electrical fire or microwave or things that you'd mentioned, even a motorcycle accident where somebody is being drugged, or they call it road rash, I guess, in a lot of places.
Right. That in effect is a burn injury.
Yeah. So you mentioned some of the educational programs that you fund education, you deliver education. Mm-hmm. What are some of the programs that you're working on now?
Let's start with the youngest age group, 0 to 4-year-olds, infants and toddlers. Now, Obviously, our goal is not to educate infants and toddlers,
Right.
but our goal is to reach the caregivers of infants and toddlers. And why is this important? Because that age group 0 to 4 is the age where you have the absolute highest incidence or likelihood of burn injury of all age groups throughout the rest of the population.
0 to 4.
0 to 4, the highest risk time. 60% of those burn injuries during that 0 to 4 age period are going to be from scalds. And they occur by means of 3 pretty equally distributed mechanisms. One would be hot beverage spills. 2 would be overheated tap water, showers, bathtubs, so forth. And the third just eluded me.
We'll come back to it.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah. I want to go back to the beginning when you were introducing your background, and you said after 3 months of being talked to about, hey, Dan, we'd love you to interview, you went and you paid a visit to the Lehigh Valley Health Network. You toured their burn center, and you said it was life-changing. When you walked in there, I know sometimes when I walk into a hospital or a different ward of a hospital, I have these preconceived notions of what I might encounter, and I kind of prepare myself. When you walked in there as part of doing your due diligence about taking this job as the executive director, CEO, were you prepared for what you saw? What did you see? You said it was life-changing, and what was it that flipped that switch?
Dave, it was not so much what I saw as it was the stories that were related to me and the pain I saw behind the eyes of the nurses. They were very discriminate in terms of my contact with patients, obviously for infection control purposes and for privacy protection. I got glimpses of patients covered in bandages, some with missing limbs, some with ears missing. That were burned off and so forth. And I can just imagine the pain they were going through. But what impressed me was the heroic endurance of these caregivers. And at that point in time, years ago, the average tenure of a burn center nurse was about 1.5 years. That's about as long as they could take this on a daily basis before they literally burned out and for mental health purposes needed to pursue a different avenue of care.
Yeah.
That's improved significantly over the years as treatment protocols have also improved. But recognizing what they went through, knowing that they were causing excruciating pain to someone to help them survive, and knowing that they were going to have to do that again and again to that person day after day, sometimes 2 times a day, and realizing that that didn't have to happen, that if that burn was prevented, both of those people would be spared that pain.
Yeah.
That's the life-changing or the moment of epiphany for me.
So when they see you coming down the halls now, do they see there's the guy trying to put me out of a job?
Actually, they're my biggest fans.
Yeah.
They're our biggest fans. These people are just incredible human beings.
Yeah.
They're in their career for the right reasons. They truly care about people. They care about doing the right thing. And the professional burn team, I say burn team because it's therapists, it's surgeons, it's doctors, it's the nurses, it's the psychologist. All of those disciplines work together in ministering to a burn survivor. and their family. The burn team embraces and supports outreach, education, and prevention 100%. And I'm so proud to be a part of a medical discipline that thinks that way, interdisciplinary, and how can we put ourselves out of business?